We're interrupting this program in order to begin our regularly scheduled broadcast. Thanks for watching the Lit TV Network.
Need that balance. So anything you want to add?
Couple things.
Okay.
You have taught me so much about relying on God and being mindful, because I communicate a lot. I'm a talker.
Yeah.
And in Joseph's story, he's sharing, and he's just sharing and sharing and sharing. And while I see the bragging of it, I also see the being a little bit naive.
Yes.
I'm sharing because I just want to give this information that I have, and I want you to grow, and I want you to be great, and I want you to hear everything I got to tell you, and all this stuff is given to me. But when people aren't ready to hear that, you're going to be met with adversity.
Yes.
And when you're met with that adversity, then you have to get quiet, and you have to rely on that love. And that's what Rickey just brought up about the love that we have to have with God in our covenant. Like, you have to rely on that, because when you're facing those adversities, and like I said, things are being stripped away, and you're looking like, what is happening? What is going on? I don't understand. It's because those things have to be stripped away for you to get to your Christ-like.
Amen.
That's how you build that inner kingdom. You've had those things, those vulnerabilities, those insecurities, those challenges, because it's to grow you and to make you better. I said to you before, the woman that I was 2 years ago prayed to be the woman that I am now.
Amen.
And the woman that I am now is going to pray to be who I will be in 6 months and thus forth. And it's because I stay true to myself, to God, and that unconditional love to have with myself, and understanding that these things come up to teach me, to grow me, and to raise me up.
Mm-hmm. That's a practice. Not to cut you off, it's a practice that Christians have to have in order for them not to be disappointed, as Rickey brought up, because it's unreal that you won't have falls in life, because we're here to learn. So even in our Christian faith, God is with us, but we must experience. Now, because we're running out of time, I want to add, Mayte, do you want to add anything about this here? Yeah, I don't want to cut anybody off, but yeah.
So all I could think about when, like, through hearing the whole story and after Rickey and Ashely, like, it's like being on a roller coaster with your seatbelt. And you have to have that seatbelt on the whole time. You can't just sit here and go down and drop and be like, okay, we're done now, and then take the seatbelt off. No, you got to go back up and you got to go down. Like, you have to have that seatbelt on, you know? And the moment you go away from me, like, no, I'm going to be safe without that seatbelt, you going to need that seatbelt, you know?
And the seatbelt is God.
Yes,
you know, it's the invisible part of you saying that God has got this, rather than me losing my composure. So to be safe means that I want to go a little bit deeper too, since we have this time, because when we look at Joseph also brought forth a structure, and any mass leader is going to have a need to follow a structure. If they're all over the place with their ideas, then they're going to keep having pitfalls, because they don't have a structure. The structure is number one. Structure brings in the safety. When you're on a roller coaster ride, even when you're going down, you're saying, okay, this is going to work out because God told me that it's going to work out. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to work out because your God and your ego told you. Some people we all have had to align with the vision that God has given us. So we look at Joseph as a visionary being birthed. And his birthing was taking him through journeys of understanding how he could actually look at situations and things that God gave him and also begin to interpret for others, which means that you're interpreting for others. Now you will begin at some point to interpret for yourself, or your interpretations for others is going to take you to a head position. Why? Because you always, like Rickey said, you kept your honor and integrity. And you see how all three of us had an idea of his way. I think that he could have been somebody of a mercurial energy because he spoke a lot, or Virgo energy, you know. Why? Because they're communicators. This communication that Joseph was getting, he was given from the heavenlies, which is a mercurial aspect. You know, when you go into Greek teachings, Hellenistic, what you'll find is that Hermes is the god of communication, the god of public speaking, you know. And that is not to take away from Christianity, but to understand that I study beyond the veil. I study beyond what people are saying because I want to understand life. Why? Because psychology is a root of who I am. I help people to understand themselves, which is behavior. Everything that you do, according to the church, is not going to get us to the place that we need, simply because of what Rickey just said. People don't believe that they need to own their challenges or anything that they created as a challenge. So we teach problem solution. We teach problem and solution. Who is the problem? I told them in my leadership class yesterday, listen, Jesus is on the cross. He got two thieves over here. There is some part of Jesus that had to be crucified. I don't care how God-like people make him. He is still a man with flesh, and flesh embodies ego, which means that there has to be a breaking. What's next? You know, if you don't like what I'm saying, God bless you to come into some truth, because the reason why people can't meet the mark is because they don't feel like they're comparable to Jesus's experience when he's telling us that he is our brother. If he's our brother, there's an identification that we're losing. So when we go back to Joseph and Jesus, Joseph is the Christ type. He had to go through issues that we see here, but he also had to pay his way through with his spiritual eyesight, spiritual fortitude. There was no job that he was given on a physical level, worldly level, that helped him to make it to prime minister. Prime minister, when you look at England and Margaret Thatcher, what she did, do you understand what a prime minister is? And all of them that followed, or the ones, maybe I think it's two that followed after her. Anyway, the point that I'm making is he had to see his way into the position that he was, but he didn't even know he was going to make it. He was saying, say it again.
He had to walk this life too. You know, It wasn't like he was just some spiritual being looking down on us or anything like that. He had to walk this life too. He knew what it was to be one of us.
You're talking about Jesus. That's right. Yeah, he had to feel the infirmities of life. So with Joseph, he had to go through the experience of understanding that, I said, a mercurial aspect, speaking, learning that he could depend on what he was hearing, even when no one else was hearing, or no one else could affirm what he was saying. And even in prison, you know, people were coming and asking him to interpret dreams, even for Pharaoh, which is where his honor came in. I don't know how old he was. I've never looked at that, but it was years upon years for this covenant to come into a place where it was materialized. So when you look at people losing heart today because they're disappointed because something didn't work, there's always another way that God is leading. If you take the disappointment out, like the disappointment is simply it's a dismissed situation, but it can go on another way. There is another appointment. You keep praying for the understanding and counting on God to find, or help you to find, I should say, lead you, as thy word is a light unto my feet and a lamp unto my path, then you will see the way, even if it's not visually, because these two eyes are false. This eye here is the eye we talk about in that understanding of the chakras. Why bring up Hermes? Because seers are communicators, and their communication is not always accepted. Joseph's wasn't accepted. Understand? Communication.